Yeah, sure.
Or you think we're?
Are you a little sick?
I'm just tired. I just got done with work. I'm thirsty,
Oh, okay, that
but
makes
yeah,
sense.
I'm. My throat is parched. Yeah.
All right, no problem. Because you just sounded a little tired, and I was wondering if that was the
No,
microphone or if that was you.
no, it's definitely me.
All right, cool, cool. I literally just looked at a story right now. Just southwest of me in Mukwonago, there is a new
McGuanago.
arcade that just opened up.
Is it
It's hard.
like a barcade or what?
No, it's like a Galloping Ghost style arcade, it looks like. It's not nearly as big, and he's charging only a couple dollars less than Galloping Ghost. So I'll probably go once just to check it out,
Yeah,
but
just to see it.
that
We
dude
didn't
needs to
go to.
he needs to charge like $15 instead of 20. That's a little much.
Well, yeah, especially like there are so many arcades like now. It's been big for a few years now. I don't know if it is there yet, but there's too many in Portland now.
Oh
Or did
yeah.
we go to any of them? Did we go to Quarter World or Ground Control at all?
No, we didn't.
Oh, we should have. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Quarter World's awesome.
When we lived together, I wasn't even aware that Galloping Ghost was a thing.
Oh, that's right by you. So do you go there a lot?
I go there a couple times a year, probably like two, maybe three times a year max, probably closer to twice a year. They get a lot of games, but there's only so many times you can go to an arcade
Yeah.
in a
Well,
year
like
before you're playing the same games over and over again.
the first year or so that I lived in Portland, I went to Quarter World and Ground Control a lot. Like sometimes on my days off, I would just go by myself, or Tracy and I would go for a few hours just to chill. But after a while, you're kind of like, all right, it's an arcade. I get it. I'm glad that there's one here I can go to if I want to. But it's mostly like, we go there after movies now. And if there's like a group of us. But when I first moved, I went like probably once or twice a week to Quarter World, to be honest.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. So if we're gonna get some more content here just to talk about, bro, you have to see Nefarious. Oh my God. That was the biggest pile of shit I've probably ever seen in the theater. That was hilarious.
Sounded. Oh, for some reason I didn't process that you were seeing it in the theater. I thought that maybe like you were renting it with your mom or
No,
something.
my mom and stepdad wanted to see it in the theater.
Well, what did they think?
My mom, she is very for her anything is scary in a movie.
Oh, that's right.
And
She's
my
a.
stepdad, he thought it was a big pile of shit, and I thought it was a big pile of shit. So,
Well, that's cool. Because I was curious because, as he's like an ex-cop. I was curious if he would think it was a pile of shit for the same reasons as you did.
well, what's funny is that he got recommended it to him by one of his friends who's a former FBI agent, so even more of a chud.
Of course. Oh, that's awesome though. And this guy was like, "You got to see this movie. It's great."
Yeah, I didn't know this until today, but apparently it was made by the same people who made God's Not Dead too. On top of it,
Those movies are so. I've only seen the first one. Bad, 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 bad.
I have heard that. I have heard some horrible things about those. I've seen reviews; they
Um,
look horrible. I
the
just find
first time Tracy and I like met in person when I flew out to visit her, we watched that as a goof.
this movie's hilarious. So the demon guy, or the I should say the bad guy in the movie, his name, and I shit you not, in the movie, his name is Wayne Brady. That's the bad guy's name in
That's
this
so
movie.
awesome. They're getting at Wayne Brady because he's such a extreme leftist. He's outspoken about his politics, and they're like, we gotta take him down through symbolism.
Well, as was said in the Chappelle Show, Brian Gumble makes Wayne Brady look like Malcolm
With like
X.
Malcolm X. Oh, I just got my Chappelle Show box set. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Oh
Just
hell
came in
yeah,
the
dude.
mail.
Oh my God, it's wild. And the guy who plays the Wayne Brady character is, I shit you not, as well. It was the other guy, the not Norman Reedus guy from Boondock Saints.
I can't place who that is actually, to be honest.
His name is Sean Patrick Flannery, and I've seen him in a lot of things. He was the main victim in Saw 7, which
Yeah.
is a movie, kind of a meta commentary on the fandom of Saw.
Should
Although
watch those again.
Saw 7, oh, that's right, you did see Saw 7, that's right. Saw 7 is garbage. It's, in my opinion, probably the single worst Saw
Yeah.
movie, but it is still directed by fellow follower Kevin Grudert, as I always say. But he was the main victim in that movie. He was the other guy in Boondock Saints, and like, he's not an awful actor. He's not a great actor, but he's not an awful actor. And he really tried in this movie, but he's
Oh,
just so bad. He's so
yeah.
bad. He was hamming it the fuck up. And in this movie, he plays like a mentally ill guy with like dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah.
And each of his identities are just like wild. One of them is like a child, and he like stutters and starts crying in like a baby voice. It's bizarre.
It's like Identity, like that shitty movie Identity.
Or like Split too. The M. Night Shyamalan movie with James McAvoy.
I still got to see that.
Although, and to be fair, I actually don't like Split very much. I think the ending especially is pretty problematic. Actually, it's
because a lot of people liked that, like surprisingly, right? People were like, "Oh, this is the best Shyamalan movie in a long time." Like,
do you want me to tell you the ending or no? Do you want to save it?
Yes, go ahead. I don't care about spoilers that much.
So the ending is the main character, the one who's played by Anya Taylor-Joy or whatever her name is, that girl who looks like an elf. What's her name?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. All right.
Yeah. So she and her friends get kidnapped by James McAvoy's character, and he has like 23 personalities. And I will say James McAvoy, I mean, of course, James McAvoy is a fucking phenomenal actor. He does a great job in that movie. And I think that's what Sean Patrick Flannery was trying to do in Nefarious, but it's just so... He's just like 10% the actor James McAvoy is. Although,
I'm intrigued. Oh, go on.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I mean, that's still saying something because, James McAvoy is just like such a top tier actor that if you even reach 10 to 20% of what James McAvoy is doing, you're still doing okay.
Yeah. He's still like his minimum is still bringing everyone else up.
Exactly. So, and I mean, Sean Patrick Flannery is still the best part of Nefarious. But anyways, the ending of Split is Anya Taylor-Joy's character in the movie. There's a lot of allusions to it early on, but she's getting molested by her uncle. Very subtle.
And I'm sure it's handled tastefully and with respect to victims of sexual assault.
Yes, it is handled very tastefully, as M. Night Shyamalan is always known to be a very tasteful filmmaker.
And subtle, of course.
And the end of the movie is, so James McAvoy, he's his various other personalities, and it's not really quite clear until the very end of the movie, because a lot of people didn't know this was an M. Night Shyamalan movie, so it was one of those things where it's not really clear if he's actually like as strong or as like deranged.
If he's like being ghost, like ghost directed thing.
So, but at the very end of the movie, James McAvoy kills all of her friends and is about to kill her, but doesn't, because he sees her as a worthy adversary because she survived getting sexually assaulted by her uncle, and he can tell that.
My God. Oh my God. But yeah, most sexual assault victims aren't strong enough to come back from it. They're unworthy.
Yeah, it's weird.
It sounds weird as shit, but it doesn't sound boring. Like,
no, Split is a good movie. It's the ending that really kind of ruined it for me, but I would say the 90% of it's really good. Honestly.
Well, my thing in general, I mean, like I'm a kind of like a Shyamalan apologist, where I think he makes really interesting movies. He's very visually interesting. He also, like, his movies are always ambitious and they're always interesting, even if they don't always work. Like I liked Knock at the Cabin, even, to be honest.
I still have to see that. I have not seen that yet.
Mostly just like on the strength of like Dave Bautista's performance, and just like because it's a pretty dumb movie in the way that most of his movies are, and he's bad at writing dialogue. But just like as a movie that's kind of like a play where it's a single set with a small cast of characters just hashing something out, and then Dave Bautista is so good in it.
Oh, yeah, I like Dave Bautista a lot, and I haven't seen him in a whole lot of stuff, but whatever I've seen him in, I generally like it.
Did you see that fucking interview, right, when Knock at the Cabin came out, where Bautista was talking and he got like really candid and vulnerable with the interviewer, and he was like, I'd really like to do rom-coms and be a romantic lead, and I keep going out for them and getting rejected. And it's like, am I so fucking unappealing? Like, he was really sad about it, yeah. And he was really like open about it in this interview.
I didn't see that one. I saw the one where he stopped talking to Manny Pacquiao because he was like a bigot. I saw that one.
I didn't know about that, but I'm glad, because with pro wrestlers, it can always go like they're either really cool or they're like big pieces of shit, Oh,
100%, yeah. Oh, and then another thing about Nefarious, I think I told you about it. The very end of the beginning of the movie, the first dialogue you hear is from Glenn Beck on the radio. It's literally Glenn Beck on the radio.
Like a framing device?
Pretty much, yeah. And the very last scene of the movie is an extended, it's like a 5-minute in-universe interview with Glenn Beck and the main character.
Awesome.
I
love my theory from when you first told me that, where I said that it's like Taxi Driver, but all of the praise he's getting isn't in his head.
Yeah. Also, like, I've made fun of Glenn Beck for a long time. He has only gotten fatter. He is just like a guy who only gets fatter. It's hilarious. Like when I was watching him in the movie, I looked at his
He
hands.
was getting fat in front of my eyes. He was still expanding.
It really was like that because I looked at his hands in the theater. I couldn't even see any veins on his hand. You know how fat you have to be to not have veins on your hand? You have to be pretty fat.
Maybe he's like doing that rock so his hands are all swollen.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it is. Man, that was a big
took
pile
him back.
of shit.
I'm glad he was able to pivot back to being in right-wing media after he was friends with Samantha Bee or whatever.
Yeah, wasn't he trying to be like a serious dramatic actor or something? Like he was trying to do something for a while.
I don't know about that. That wouldn't surprise me. He seems like the guy that would be like, I'm going to be a real actor. I know he originally was a morning zoo guy for years before he was political at all, which makes so much sense.
I remember Chapo talked about it, but he tried doing like a stage play in Branson, Missouri.
Oh, that's right.
Childhood.
He did like a spoken word, like his memoirs thing, like a one-man show. Oh, I want to see that.
And I know we talked about Nefarious a little bit last night, but it was very funny because in all of these like Daily Wire and like Blaze TV and the sort of like God's Not Dead adjacent films, even though it's of course God's Not Dead to, fucking whatever, but it's really funny that they always give the villain their values. It's bizarre.
That's so weird. When you first told me that the villain, that the serial killer was a pro-life guy, I thought it was a typo. And I was like, oh, you mean pro-choice, right? Like he's a liberal sicko serial killer. Oh,
he is literally a demented fucking serial killer who's like, if you murder your baby, you're sacrificing babies to Moloch. And it's like, bro, what? Bizarre. There's like a 5-minute extended anti-abortion segment in this movie out of nowhere. And the whole thing is really funny is the concept of this movie is it's death row inmate is getting interviewed by a psychologist to like get his determination on whether or not he's mentally competent enough to be executed. Now, this movie takes place in Oklahoma. I don't think they give a shit. They probably just kill him anyways. But for the purpose of this movie, it just is what it is. He shows up, he sees this guy who's very obviously mentally ill. It's plainly obvious to everybody. He says, like, probably about 25% through the total conversation, he's like, well, I'm an atheist and I don't believe anything that you say. And he's like, well, if you're not an atheist, well, I will tell you one thing. I know that your wife is getting an abortion and she's going to sacrifice that baby to Moloch and you're perfectly okay with it. And he's just like, wow, that was really touching. I should call her right now to stop her from getting an abortion. And it's like, literally,
he was like, changed his mind.
Yeah, literally 2 minutes prior, he's literally like, yep, I'm an atheist. I respect my fiance's decisions, her body, her choice. And then 2 minutes after, a serial killer who he's interviewing is like, oh yeah, well, you're sacrificing your baby to Moloch. He's like, oh, you've changed my mind entirely. Like, bizarre. It makes no sense.
They're so bad at movies, but they're great at, I don't know, spectacle, I guess. This sounds like a spectacle, if nothing else.
And what's really funny about it, it's an incredibly boring film.
Oh, yeah.
It's a movie that 90% of it takes place in a jail cell. 90% of it. With middling performances on both ends.
Oh my God.
Literally 99% of this movie, outside of the Glenn Beck interview, takes place in this prison. And they're not interesting sets. It's literally a blank, like big interview room prison cell thing. Looks like the wing of a prison, and they're being interviewed here. Literally no environmental storytelling, nothing interesting going on in the background. Performances are middling. Performances are inaccurate in a lot of ways because not only is the atheist character easily fucking within 2 minutes of talking to this crazy guy, he's like, I'm an atheist, I've always been an atheist, you can't convince me. And 2 minutes after being yelled at by a mentally ill serial killer, he's like, yep, I have changed my mind entirely. Just makes no sense. And that's the thing that a lot of these movies do, like God's Not Dead, like they make these like explicitly non-religious characters as gullible as their Christian audiences.
Well, the thing is, for them, that makes sense because from the viewpoint of like a fundamentalist or like a conservative Christian, they believe that there's no such thing as an atheist. So they probably are like, well, it's because everyone knows deep in their souls that they were created by God, and they're easily swayed because, humans need to believe. I don't know. It's stupid.
That's a good point. And honestly,
so did this movie get like a wide release?
No,
was this like a wide release?
It did not.
Your stepdad just heard about it because of his friend.
Because his FBI friend, yeah. It opened at 933 theaters nationally, so it wasn't like a super small opening, but it's only grossed. It released about 2.5 weeks ago, and it's only grossed $3 million, so not a lot.
Oof. Oof.
Yeah. Out of 933 theaters in its opening, it grossed 1.3 million. So once again, that's not a lot.
I think that's why I assumed that you didn't see it in the theater, because I was like, well, this definitely isn't like a major release, any movie that's like this, like inherently right wing and explicitly.
Well, I remember I went to that Dungeons and Dragons movie about a month ago on a date, and I remember this trailer was in it. So when my mom was like, "Hey, do you want to see this Nefarious movie?" I'm like, sure, I guess." And I looked up the trailer. I'm like, "Oh, I saw this fucking trailer." And honestly, the trailer it's not a bad trailer. It makes it look kind of like a Stephen King adaptation or something like that.
Yeah, like that vibe.
But then you watch the movie and you're like, "Oh, no, this is way worse than a Stephen King adaptation." And that's some of those adaptations aren't very good.
I hope a lot of people got suckered in by the decent trailer and were like, "Yeah, I'll see that," and then sat down and like, is this a movie about like QAnon?
No, not at all. There's no QAnon stuff in this.
I was just being.
Yeah. I mean the poster itself, because I'm looking at the poster right now. This poster is terrible. This poster is fucking terrible. It is. Wow.
Is it the one you sent me?
No. I'll send it. I'll send this one to you in the chat right here. But yeah, oh my God, look at this piece of shit poster. Because honestly, the poster itself isn't the worst thing of all time, but just look at the bottom right corner.
Oh my. Poster. This is like an old, like something awful, like Photoshop contest entry.
And honestly, I think this movie could have been good. I could have saved it at the very end, because the whole point of this movie, because it's also, by the way, it is an anti-choice and anti-death penalty movie, which is very strange. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that in a movie before, so I was kind of interested in that part. So at the very end, the psychiatrist character basically just gets like emotionally manipulated by the serial killer guy. By Mr. Wayne Brady himself.
Man, I wish it just was Wayne Brady playing a character named Wayne Brady.
That would be so motherfucking funny, but they probably couldn't afford actual Wayne Brady, so they had to get Sean Patrick Flannery to show up for this. But
similar, the poor man's Wayne Brady, Sean Patrick Flannery.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at a picture of him, I mean, it's really hard to tell the difference. But the very end, so basically, it's also an anti-euthanasia movie on top of it too. So basically all the legitimate pro-life values, I guess, technically speaking here.
Yeah, at least they're consistent.
That is true. I was actually very surprised by that part. I got to give him credit for that. So the whole purpose of this movie is this psychologist is interviewing, once again, this mentally ill serial killer. And the mentally ill serial killer is like, "Well, you're no better than me because you've also killed people." So basically, he's insinuating that the psychologist killed his own mom for her money. And he's like, "Well, she was in pain." And it's like, "Well, that's no excuse." And it's like, well, of course, in certain circumstances, it's absolutely an excuse.
The reconciler and the serial killer in this film sound kind of similar, just like metaphysical, all-knowing creatures of heavenly menace.
In all honesty, I kid you not, even though this movie was better, this movie is objectively like a much better made film than The Reconciler. I think The Reconciler is a far better film than this.
I mean, I would probably rather watch The Reconciler left to my own devices, to be honest.
This movie is also 10 minutes longer, so that there's certainly something.
Oh, yeah. No, Reconciler's winning.
Sure. Also, of course, this movie doesn't have Roddy Piper in it, so that's automatically like 5 points against it. But
of course,
it's got Glenn Beck instead of Roddy Piper.
Again, Glenn Beck, the poor man's Roddy Piper.
But then the next one is the abortion, and it's like, and the Wayne Brady guy's like, "You're gonna kill, by the end of the day, you're going to have killed at least 3 people." And he's like, "Okay, whatever." So he already allegedly killed his mom. That's what the serial killer guy's saying. And then it's like, "Well, you allowed your fiance to get an abortion, so that's murder number 2." And then the third murder is because of his own wrath and having been owned by this mentally ill serial killer. He signs off on his execution when initially he wasn't going to, because this guy's obviously horrifically mentally ill. But he signs off on it because he got owned by the serial killer. And then at the very end, while he's watching him get executed in the electric chair, he gets possessed by Sean Patrick Flannery's demon. And he attempts to kill himself, but he doesn't. And he's saved by God himself because the gun was malfunctioning or something. And Glenn Beck even literally says this in the movie. So he's the voice of God himself, Glenn Beck is, in this.
Naturally.
Glenn Beck, the poor man's God. So basically in this movie, so yeah, it's an anti-euthanasia, anti-choice, and anti-death penalty movie. So it's very interesting in that regard. Just like aggressively just pro-life in all aspects, which I was very weird mix. I'll just say that.
I mean, like, at very least, I appreciate the consistency.
100%. Yeah.
I wonder if it's a genuine consistency. Like, I wonder if the filmmakers, when they're like engaging in whatever sort of activism that they do, if they're as passionately anti-death penalty as they are anti-choice, or if that's like
I'm gonna guess
secondary.
that's kind of an afterthought. Yeah, it's kind of an afterthought for these
That's
guys.
my assumption too.
So within 5 minutes of the movie, after the guy kills himself and then Wayne Brady shows up and then Glenn Beck shows up on the radio, the warden talks to the psychologist guy, and he literally explains what the plot is going to be throughout the entire movie within like a 30-second piece of exposition.
The movie you're about to see?
Yes, he literally says to the psychologist, like, listen, you're going to talk to this man one-on-one. You either have a chance to spare his life or you have a chance to execute him. And he's going to make you go all which ways about things, and he's going to make you believing his crazy bullshit. Good luck. And that's literally what happens in the entire movie.
Just no twist or anything?
Nope. No twist at all. The only twist, which is something that you could tell from a mile away, is that his actual demon possession is real. That's it. But that's plainly obvious based on the movie that they're making. So no twists and turns. When I say this movie's boring, I mean it's fucking boring. I went to the bathroom because I drink a lot of water, so I went to the bathroom 4 times during this movie, and I didn't miss anything.
Were you going to the bathroom 4 times because you kept needing to find ways to get out of there? You're like, I gotta go.
No, it was literally just I had to piss, but it was like, honestly, that too. But yeah, I mean, literally, yeah. Something like 90% of this movie takes place in this boring fucking wing of a prison. And, you know, it has no environmental storytelling, nothing interesting going on. It's just 2 boring assholes talking back and forth. It's like, imagine, Brian, if you just went outside downtown Portland and just talked to a random crazy homeless person for 90 minutes.
Well, that's kind of what it's like when they won't stop wandering around my store.
Yeah.
No, it sounds like a great film.
You know what's funny is my mom was like, oh, you know, honestly, his performance was really like wild. It was really disturbing to me. And I'm like, Mom, when we go to Portland, you'll find 20 people like that. Like, I'm straight up, seriously.
That's very sweet, though.
I thought it was very funny, but yeah, my stepdad was just like, man, that was a big piece of shit. And I'm like, yep. Big pile of shit.
See, even your cop's dad was just like, no, that's just bad. It just sucks.
My nearly 70-year-old former cop stepdad thinks that was a pile of shit.
But listeners, Taylor's mom did think it was wild and scary. So evens out.
I mean, you know, she's a therapist and she deals with a lot of very mentally ill people. So for her, it was a bit more obviously real.
She has associations with it.
But I was just like, Mom, if you think that's bad, go to Portland. You will find 20 people on the street that are just like that. It's not.
Well, she's been to Seattle, huh?
Well, we're going to Seattle, but she's never been.
Oh, I see.
She's never been.
That's similar.
She's never been to the Pacific Northwest before. But yeah, either way, I'm just like, man, Christians, I mean, well, I should say evangelicals specifically, they make such bad movies.
Well, like, the thing is, I actually do believe that, you know, you could make there's no reason you couldn't make a good explicitly Christian movie. And it's not like, I'm not a Christian, but I don't see any reason it'd be, I don't know why it's so hard, except for maybe that most of the people that make the movies they're just front loading the message and they're putting that before making a good movie, instead of considering that if they just make a better movie that works on its own, more people will see it and will, you know, pick up on the message.
You know, of course, we already reviewed an incredibly good Christian movie. It's called The Reconciler. But no, we reviewed Children of Men, which is an aggressively Christian movie, but a good Christian movie.
Well, no, that's right. We did review a good Christian movie, a great movie even.
Might even be considered one of the best films of all time. I mean, I would argue probably maybe the best film released that year, at least in the top 5 films released that year.
Definitely a contender.
Like, I think it won 1 Academy Award, but it lost to a bunch of other movies, including Pan's Labyrinth, which is the movie that I would argue is maybe better than that. But even then, that's a little questionable. And I love Pan's Labyrinth.
I like Pan's Labyrinth. It's not my favorite Del Toro movie. I enjoy it, but other Del Toro fans hate me for that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty good.
Have you seen any of his other Criterion release movies, like Devil's Backbone or Kronos? I have not. Is Devil's Backbone the one that takes place during the Spanish War? I think it takes place a little bit before the Spanish Civil War. I can't remember exactly when it takes place. Like, that's like the backdrop? Essentially, yeah. It's like the years post World War I and like pre-Spanish Civil War, I think. Yeah, I've wanted to see that for a while. That's a really good fucking movie. I think you'd like that one quite a bit. Let's see here. Devil's Backbone. Oh, okay. It is set during the Spanish Civil War. Never mind. And well, you know, to be fair, so is Pan's Labyrinth. So, or at least around, a couple years after the Spanish Civil War. But yeah, But I also really like, and even though it was a kind of, from what I understand, it was a bit of a disaster, I really like Chronos quite a bit. That's a fun little movie. That one actually takes place in Mexico instead of Spain, but it's a movie about like a thrift store owner, like antique store owner in Mexico who gets like infected by like a vampire virus. And Ron Perlman is like an oil executive there, and he like finds out about this and he's trying to like exploit it. And his Ron Perlman's great in that movie because there's interviews on the Criterion release where Ron Perlman like actually tried speaking Spanish, and his Spanish is in real life is pretty bad. And he tried like speaking Spanish to Guillermo del Toro when they were fucking casting the movie, and he thought he did a great job, and he's like, all right, that was awful, you're in. And he basically hired him on the spot because of his awful Spanish, because the character
the confidence.
Well, yeah, because the character in the movie is like American, but he's like a blowhard asshole who thinks he's so smart. So it actually ended up kind of being perfect. He's like, wow, that Spanish was absolutely terrible. You're in. And it was just...
You are this guy.
It's so
part you were born to play, Ron.
It's so funny. It's so good. Guillermo del Toro has fantastic comedic timing in real life. He's a very funny guy.
He's a cool guy.
Oh, God.
I hope someday he gets to do his collaboration with the fucking manga guy whose name Shunji Ito. I hope.
I would watch the fuck out of that.
I think they've tried they've gotten together and entered like the discussions or pre-production stuff a couple of times for possible collaborations. Just never worked out.
You know about PT, right?
No.
Well, we were talking about Sean Patrick Flanery and Boondock Saints, but Norman Reedus with Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro were working on a Silent Hill sequel.
And yeah.
That, oh, God. Imagine, yeah, fuck. And you know what? I'll say it. Hideo Kojima, he's a massive blowhard himself.
But
he makes good content.
He's a visionary. No, he's great. I mean, I think with people that are that, like, have that weird and that unified of a vision, they have to be kind of a blowhard to make it happen.
Honestly, if we ever do like video game reviews for the show, first thing we should do is like fucking Metal Gear Solid retrospective.
I am down because so I've actually never played a Metal Gear game. I had friends that loved them, but I love the lore. Like that's a game where even though I don't play it at all, never have, I've gone out of my way to like learn about it.
I played all the mainline games except for 4, but I think it's only available on the PS3, so that's obviously makes it pretty hard if you don't own a PS3.
Well, yeah.
I like all of them except for MGS5, which, if we ever release this as a solo little piece of extended dialogue here, but MGS5 is a very divisive game. Yeah. I think it's a pile of shit. I think it's terrible. It's extremely repetitive. There are missions in the game that repeat a lot. The story's not very good. It's the only mainline game where they didn't get David Hayter back to play Snake. They got who's the guy in 24?
Sutherland.
Yeah, they got fucking Kiefer Sutherland to voice Snake. Not great. To get the max ranking on every mission, you have to play it literally perfectly, and some of these missions go on for like 30 fucking minutes.
This sounds like a bad game. This is the one that Kojima was fired on, right?
Yes. And I could see why. Because I think as much as I love Kojima, he really, and I understand why, it was always meant to be the last MGS game. So he wanted to go balls in, but he just, and part of it is also Konami, because that was also for a long time, up until very recently, that was the last physical game that Konami released for years. Because they didn't want to release physical games. They wanted to work on like mobile games and pachinko after that.
Oh, what a sad end to Konami.
Yeah. So, and I mean, the game is objectively not finished. The story's only about 2/3 of the way finished, and you can fucking tell because the game ends on basically a cliffhanger, and it's not a planned cliffhanger at all. You can clearly tell it's not good. It's a game that I'm legit surprised it got as many raving reviews as it did, because it is not a good game. It's really not a good game. And I think in retrospect, I think it's gotten much more of a negative critical analysis. But at the time, it just got glowing reviews. And I'm like, did we play the same game?
Probably because maybe just because it was a Metal Gear game and just fanboy. I hate that word fanboy, but the thing where release and people just automatically are like, oh, it's good. They've always been good.
there are missions, quote unquote missions in the game that are quote unquote story missions, but they're literally just hard versions of some of the worst levels of the game. It's bad.
Oh.
It's a bad fucking game. I will say the gameplay itself is pretty good, but the actual missions themselves are fucking horrible. They're so bad. It almost seems like kind of like, how do I describe it? It is an unfinished game, so it feels like a budget DLC game. It's just not good.
Oh.
It's not good. Oh. And we might, if we ever become more popular and if we ever release this and they hear that, people might fucking shit on us pretty hard. But honestly, that movie is fucking trash.
That's what we need. You know what? Let's pretend that I know about that game. I hate that game too. Come on, come get me. That game sucks. If you like it, you're a fucking tool.
Fucking trash.
I know all about video games that have come out in the last 30 years. And I think any games our listeners like suck.
There are some funny elements to it, like the main bad guy in the game. Oh God, what the fuck was that? Oh, I remember a very funny thing, and it's not honestly that funny, but it's really dumb. So there's a character in the game. You might have heard this when the game came out. There's a big controversy about a character named Quiet, who is literally just, and Kojima loves doing this, where he puts like characters with obvious sex appeal in the game just to sell copies.
Sure.
And Quiet's character is, how do I put it? There's a lot of sexual assault that character goes through in that game.
Oh, good.
It's good. Yeah, it's not good. It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's a character that people like Anita Sarkeesian and other people had an issue with back in the day, and I can see why.
Reasonably in this case.
Yeah. Not great.
All right.
Not great.
I think I'm gonna head out and go. I'm gonna try to run some errands tonight.
Hell yeah, dude. Talk to you later. I'm glad the audio sounds a lot better because it sounds
me too.
Great. Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our little review of Nefarious and our discussion of various other bullshit topics. Brian and I did not get a chance to do an outro for this episode, so I will fill in here. You can follow me, Taylor, at Carlos Chantor on Twitter.com. And you can follow Brian at John Stab, that's JONSTABB on Twitter.com as well. Thank you very much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for listening.